Welcome! In this video, I'm going to show you the steps to install Java 22 in this case, and the IntelliJ IDEA development environment onto a clean Windows system. I'll create a simple Hello World program and execute it both from within the IDE and from the PowerShell command line to ensure everything's working properly. Here is a brand new installation of Windows Server 2022 Base in an AWS virtual machine. I'm running as administrator, which you probably aren't, so the first step is to ensure that the firewall will at least notify us if these installation packages need to download anything. They typically will, and I found out that unless I reconfigure the firewall, installations can sometimes fail silently without any indication of why. Search for the firewall and select Check Firewall Status. From there, select Change Notification Settings and check the boxes to ensure I'll be notified if anything is blocked. That notification will also allow me to permit the request if it's something that I want to happen. I'll close that and start the browser and go to adoptium.net. There are other places that provide Java, including Azul Systems and, of course, Oracle themselves. I tend to shy away from Oracle's distribution as their license isn't obviously free for all my uses. There appear to be some encumbrances related to commercial use, and I'm not a lawyer and I don't want to pay for one, so I'm not confident about what I'm doing with it, and it's easier just to stay away. Adoptium is an Eclipse Foundation project, and I'm happy with that one. I'll accept all their cookies. It's worth mentioning that all the core elements, tools and libraries you get in any JDK will be the same for any of the open source releases, though different providers, notably Oracle, will add extra tools, for example for performance analysis. But none of those extras are relevant for learning, nor frankly for much day-to-day coding. Architects on big projects probably care. At the time I'm making this, the end of May 2024, Java 21 is the current long-term support version, but Java 22 is out. So I'm going to pick other platforms and versions, and from there I'll select the Windows platform and the x86 architecture. I want a JDK, that's a Java Development Kit. If I were to get just the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment, I would be able to run other people's compiled Java binaries, but unable to compile anything. Since I want to write my own code, that's not going to be good enough. After selecting JDK, I'll choose version 22 and hit the download button for the MSI installer package. When that download completes, I launch the program, hit Next, and I'm selecting this option to set the Java Home environment variable. This environment variable is often used by tools that run from the command line, so it's a good idea to have that configured. This installer also adds the Java tools to the path, which I'll need as I'm going to compile and run my example from the PowerShell command line, as well as doing so from the development environment. I hit Next and Install, and after a moment the installation completes and I hit Finish. Now I'm going to test that this worked. I'll launch the PowerShell and run the command java-version. This tells me that I've successfully installed Java 22.0.1, and it's the Temurin distribution. Temurin is just the name of the Adoptium project's Java distribution. As a second check, I run the command javac -version. This also tells me that the compiler for Java version 22.0.1 is installed. Those checks have told me three things. First, that the installation completed correctly. Second, that the path was correctly set to allow PowerShell and other command line tools to find Java. And third, it verifies that I don't have any other odd versions of Java or the javac compiler lurking on the path in a way that might mess things up. If the version numbers of the compiler and the main Java runtime are different, that is likely to cause problems. And this would tell me that some other JDK or perhaps JRE was also installed. I need both commands to succeed, and to give the same version number. Up next, I'll fetch the IntelliJ IDEA development tool, or IDE. This comes from JetBrains, and you see here I went to jetbrains.org. That address forwards me to the jetbrains.com/opensource/idea page. If I went directly to jetbrains.com, I'd find a slightly different but entirely usable landing page. In either case, there will be a menu item at the top here, Developer Tools. I select that and then select IntelliJ IDEA. From this page, I click Download here in the top right area. Now, IntelliJ has two versions, one called Ultimate, which requires a subscription fee, and one just a little way down the page called the Community Edition. The Community Edition is free and more than enough for very substantial Java projects, and definitely more than enough for learning with. I click the Download button here. Obviously, if you're using something other than Windows, you'll need to pick a different distribution, both here and for the Java download. In this case, I'm choosing the executable installer. The zip archive works as well, but won't configure menu entries, path, and so forth. This is an Intel architecture virtual machine. I don't want the ARM distribution. When the download completes, start the program, hit Next 3 times, unless perhaps you want to install in an alternative location or change the Start menu folder, and then hit Install. Now this part took long enough that I've sped it up in the video. When it completes, I click the box to run the program and hit Finish. After the splash screen, I accept the license. I allow anonymous statistics, but it won't change how the tool works if you choose Don't Send instead. That's up to you. At this point, the program starts and I can create a new project. I chose to name this project Test It, but you can choose any name you like as long as you avoid special characters. The tool will object if you choose characters it doesn't like. I'm not going to change the location for the project. The default is called IDEA Projects in your home directory. I'm going to allow the tool to use its own IntelliJ format for the project file. This is the quick and easy option for getting started. If you find yourself working on a Java project in a company, it'll likely be built with one of the other tools, Maven or Gradle, so don't be surprised if that aspect is different later. Also, if you take a training course from me, I'll probably use Maven, but I'll also discuss it in that course. The IntelliJ format is fine for my purpose here. The next thing I do, but only necessary on a new install of IntelliJ or after installing another JDK, is to tell IntelliJ where that JDK is located so it can use it. IntelliJ can actually download a JDK directly, but I've already done that. Notice it's offering to fetch a JDK from Oracle. Instead, I'll click on the drop-down and select Add JDK. From here, I navigate to C:, Program Files, Eclipse Adoptium, and select JDK-22.0.1.8-hotspot. Hotspot, by the way, is the name of a runtime performance optimizer, but basically this is the full name of the JDK I fetched. I click OK, and when that's settled down, I'm going to deselect Add Sample Code and Generate Code with Onboarding Tips. Instead, I'll write the code from scratch. There's very little to it, and part of my purpose is to show it to you. After I hit Create, IntelliJ creates and loads the project into the workspace. Notice it might take a moment or two to get itself organized. In the bottom right area here, there's a progress bar alongside Scanning Files to Index. There's quite a bit of internal organizing that goes on after a new JDK is installed, and it takes quite a bit of time. The benefit, perhaps obviously, is that everything goes faster after it's been organized and indexed. I now right-click on this src directory, that's short for source, and select New, and then Java class file. I enter hello, all in lowercase, a dot, and then hello world with the H and W capitalized. Java has strong conventions on capitalization, and this conforms to those. After I hit enter, IntelliJ creates a skeleton class file and opens it in an editor pane. In here, there's a package statement. You'll notice that the package name is hello, all lowercase. That came from the part of the name I entered before the dot. Packages, equivalent to namespaces in some other languages, are used for grouping related code so it's easier to find. In Java, they have a mandatory relationship with directories that contain that code. Then there's the class declaration. Notice that the name of the class is Hello World with a capital H and capital W, exactly as I put it after the dot when I created it. Also, the file name has exactly that name, Hello World with the same capitalization, and the extension .java. We don't see the extension here, but all of that is mandatory too. I'll just make this editor pane a little bigger. Java programs started a method, or function if you prefer, I'm not picky, called main. The declaration must have exactly this form: public, static, void, main, open parentheses, string, left and right square bracket, args, closing parenthesis, and then a pair of curly braces. There's actually a little bit of flexibility in that main declaration, but not much, so assume for this example that it must be exactly as shown. I'm not going to explain what all the parts mean. This video is only intended to get your environment set up so you can start learning. Well, now it's time to print our greeting. Java groups code into packages and classes, and the utility I'll use to print to the console is called println, and it lives in a variable called out, which in turn is embedded in a class called system. You can shorten this code a little, but this is the most general form, so I'm going to keep things simple and use it in this form. Java represents text in a type called string, and the literal form of string uses double quote marks. If you come from a language that uses single quotes, take care. Those have a different meaning in Java and cannot be used here. Finally, Java uses semicolons, so I'll end the line with that. At this point, IntelliJ decides to do some more setup. Notice the indexing JDK progress bar down here? This took a little while on this low-spec virtual machine, but when it completes, these green arrows show up here. The arrows indicate an executable program, and there's another arrow up here that does more or less the same thing. Also, if I right-click on the editor pane, I get this menu, which also allows me to run the program. Now, if you don't get these arrows after the indexing finishes, you've likely mistyped some part of the main method's declaration. Check every detail, including the capitalization. Even a small error, like a capital M, will result in code which will not be an entry point, even if perhaps it's still legitimate code in every other way and doesn't cause a compilation error. Now I'm going to select the Run entry from the menu, and IntelliJ builds my program, Java's compiled language, and then executes it and gives the output we probably expected. Hello, Java 22 world. Now, as a final example, I'm going to build and run this code from the PowerShell command line. I get the PowerShell up and change directory to the project directory, IDEA projects, /testit. Notice the src subdirectory, which contains the source code. To compile the code, I issue the command javac -d classes, and then I specify the path to the source file. Notice that this starts with src, then has the subdirectory hello, which matches the name of our package, and then the file name is helloworld.java. Again, the hello world part exactly matches the class name. The -d option causes the compiler to put the compiled binary into a directory called classes. And again, it creates a subdirectory hello, matching the package, and in that directory it puts the helloworld.class file, which is the translation of our source code to binary. To run the program, I give the command java -cp classes. That part tells the runtime system, or JVM, which is short for Java Virtual Machine, That tells the JVM to look under the classes directory for binaries. Then I complete the line with the fully qualified class name of the class that contains the main method. Fully qualified class name, by the way, means I put the package name, the dot, and then the class name. But notice I don't put .class on the end, and I'm not using the \directory separator. I'm using the dot. I'm actually referring to the class, not the binary file that contains it. But when I enter that, the program runs with the same output as before. Okay, there you have it. You've seen how to install Java, configure it to run from the PowerShell and to support other tools, and use the Java home environment variable. You've seen the installation of JetBrains' IntelliJ IDEA and the configuration of it to use the Java version that was downloaded. And then you saw the creation of a trivial Java program along with executing it both in the IntelliJ tool and from the command line. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and better yet, leave a comment or a suggestion perhaps for a future video. Cheers.